it's cold in here.
Cold?
Yeah.
I think it feels pretty good. Maybe you should wear long pants.
I brought a sweater just in case.
It's
Because it's
summertime.
usually good and
Or
chilly
bring a
in
little
here.
blanket.
I've got a coat, but it's not in the car.
Okay, so, I would like to call to order the South Burlington City Council meeting of Monday, July 1st, 2019. Katie O'Brien Barrett Art Day. So our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Instructions on exiting the building in case of emergency.
In case of emergency tonight, please go out the side doors here and over on this side and proceed out to the building beyond us to the south and gather in the parking lot just beyond that, just before you get to the entry to 189. And I will make sure that the building is cleared, so please move expeditiously. If you cannot get out this way, please go out the main door, out into the front parking lot, and to the same location beyond the next building.
Okay, thank you. Agenda review. Additions, deletions, or changes in order of any of the agenda items. Does anyone have any? All right, seeing none. Comments and questions from the public? I don't see any public, so no comments. Announcement and the city manager's report. Tim, do you have anything?
Can you go to Dave first?
Okay, Dave, do you have anything to announce?
In the last 2 weeks, I really, gotta think back, the last 2 weeks, busy. I don't think so. Not that I may have missed something, but probably did, probably forgot something, but no, nothing earth shattering.
Okay, now I remember what I did.
All right.
So, I went to the steering committee meeting, which was right after the last city council meeting that we had, because it was at the police station.
Oh,
Like, everybody else was there, so no big surprise. I think, was I the only city councilor that attended the Mascoma Bank branch opening on Shelburne Road in the Larkin building?
Oh, I bet you were.
I bet you were. I went to steering
And
committee.
everybody was
I
there.
kept that invitation on the counter until Ted threw it out, and then I totally.
The Mascoma VPs were there,
Oh, yeah?
and there were a lot of developers there. Eric Farrell was there. We had quite the greeting, and Janet Bombardier, former executive at Global Foundries, who went to GMP and now is at another company, was there. And you could walk out with a Ben and Jerry's ice cream
Oh, that's where
pie,
you went.
one of the little chocolate-covered ones. That bank, this is a little loud. Charlie. You can get a slice of cheese from that bank, or Ben and Jerry's treat, or there's some extra yogurt, I think, too. They have a couple of refrigerators, so. Anyway, I also attended today the reading at the public library of Frederick Douglass's July 5th, 1852 speech to the Rochester Sewing Society. And it was entitled "The Meaning of the 4th of July for the Negro." And there are about 20 of us, I guess, that took turns reading an abridged version of the speech that didn't take more than about 35 minutes, but it's a really powerful piece of literary history that I urge everybody to Google and perhaps go read it on your own. It's relevant even still today. That's it's really powerful about it.
Great. Thank you. David, you already said you didn't.
No, I went to the steering committee meeting like Tim did, I'd forgotten about that, so yes,
Okay.
that was it.
All right, so I also attended the steering committee meeting, and I also, with Kevin, every couple of weeks, we meet with the library board leadership and the librarian to just discuss the pending library and if there's any issues, so I attended that. I had planned to go to the whole open space forum, got my time mixed up, so I managed to get there as they were ending, an hour late. I thought it started at 6:30, and it started at 5:30. So I'll have to watch it on online. And then I attended an airport commission meeting and did, share once again, with the commissioners, some of our concerns, and, you know, I mean, I think we have a relationship, and the conversations are always cordial, and good, but I think there's an opportunity for, the city of South Burlington to work with the airport, potentially in a really productive way by really thinking about, how we might discuss or move in whatever way we plan to, with the zoning, the area around the airport. If you recall, we had taken that, we carved that out of IZ, so that was not going to be discussed in any way, and it probably is time to have a conversation and to figure out what we can or cannot do. Because there certainly are companies that have come forward and are interested in some of the space, and I would like to think that we could help to utilize that space in a way that works for everyone and doesn't, you know, further denigrate the neighborhood, but rather improves it. So I think it's probably time that we think about that, and that's something we can ask the Planning Commission to do if the council is interested in that. But, so we talked a little bit about that.
Should we ask right after IZ? It's over?
Yes, I mean, yes, no, I think we should, after IZ is over, start that conversation and see what it is we want to do. So, and I am meeting with the mayor, and Ms. Lott, Christine Lott, the new mayor of Winooski, and I'm meeting with them next week. So we'll continue that conversation as well. So, okay. Kevin.
Thanks, Helen. Just a few things. Tom and I have completed the staff reviews for all of the management team. Went very well. And looking ahead to the future of the year ahead, trying to set some goals and some expectations around culture, around work plans, those sorts of things. So they were very productive meetings with the team, and the team is very motivated and continues to be. For the public who may not be aware, we're very pleased that one of our lieutenants, Greg Jager, is leaving for the FBI Academy in a couple weeks.
So
This is a really high honor. This is really, in a lot of ways, prerequisite for higher positions in police departments. It's a highly sought-after placement. Greg has proven himself as a leader. Of course, the chief has gone, but we're very happy. He'll be gone for 10 weeks, I believe, to the academy, and
Wow.
and we'll cover his shift and all, but very, very pleased for Greg and for the department. As speaking of the department, I'm sure that you are all well aware of the arrest made just down the street here last week in a sex predator situation. 4 or 5 of our officers and a member of the state's attorney staff were injured, none seriously, fortunately. Several had to go to the emergency department, and they're all fine. They were out within a short period of time. But 4 of our cruisers were damaged. We're just very, very happy that this individual is off the street, and that none of our officers were badly hurt, because it could have gotten much, much worse. And I credit the officers for their training and for their presence and all, keeping this from being something that could have been a lot worse. So thanks, kudos to the police department, all of them, and to the chief and to the whole team.
Can I ask just a follow-up question on
Yeah.
that? Is there any chance that that individual who rammed their cars with his car, that his insurance would be liable for that and cover? I mean, I have no idea even if he has car insurance,
I
but,
say, that might be a stretch.
It was intentional.
you know, I don't know.
Yeah, so I'll check on it.
I don't know. It just occurred to me, because that's a costly hit to
Yeah.
our city.
Our insurance will cover it, but,
Yes,
It'd
and
be
then
good to
our
know if his
insurance
will.
goes up.
yeah, you're right. I will look into that, and I'll get a note out to you
Okay.
with that answer.
Luckily, we have insurance against uninsured drivers too, I would bet, so, which I think you're required to have in
I
Vermont.
think, yes, you
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's no fault, actually.
Last Friday, the chief and I joined Brandy Littlefield from Howard for a presentation before a group of staff involved in mental health at the Department of Mental Health, and then some of the other organizations who work with them. This presentation was on community outreach. And we have some new statistics that I'll get out to you with the most recent quarter.
Good.
Anyway, the last thing I wanted to comment on, I was very disappointed today, unfortunately, to get a letter from the attorney for the school district relating to the appearance before the Development Review Board of the city for subdivision for the community center. Subdivision is where the lot is divided off, and it will allow us to actually purchase the lot. The letter expressed the concerns of the, apparently, of the school board as it relates to two issues that are currently under discussion in and under negotiation in an amendment, an addendum that they have insisted on. So instead of letting this negotiation continue, they have sent an email or a letter to the DRB on a matter that's not before the DRB for subdivision. Anyway, it's disappointing. I assume that they still want to continue to negotiate on the addendum, but you know, this came out of nowhere. We're blindsided by this.
Can you say
And
what the
their
issues are?
issues are relevant to the new road that will be put in, that will provide access to their school, and also some parking issues. Again, neither one of those is relevant to what's before the DRB, but, and we're negotiating. We're having active engagement between our attorney and this attorney.
However,
and-
Elizabeth did state that that would not hold up signing the permits.
Well, we're preparing all that information, but we have to be able to get the permits. And now they're raising concerns before the DRB on matters that have been in this negotiation. So, you know, we're doing this in good faith. As you'll recall, they insisted that the MOU was complete, final, I think the word was to be hung on the wall. Only after that did they come back and say that now they want an addendum to the MOU. So we're negotiating that. So this is just disappointing. It's going to cause more time. Now we're trying to get moving on those parts of the project that don't need wetland or stormwater permits. It's possible, if there's no further delay, that we can get in the ground on the road in early August and have much of the work on the road done before students come back to school and parents come back to school. But we can't do that if there'll be continued delays. And so it is disappointing as we're trying to get our work done so it doesn't impede their access to the school, this sort of thing pops up. So anyway, we'll deal with it, but it's just, it's a disappointment. So that's all I got.
Well, last time we met, a week ago, 10 days ago, whatever the heck it was they were gonna try and, we were gonna try and have everything prepared for their signatures on their meeting on the 10th, wasn't
Yep.
that where we left it?
We're still trying to get there, Dave. We're expecting to have the design work done by Wednesday and all the other documents. Now, whether or not we'll have that to them in time for their meeting on the 10th, in order to read it all, we'll certainly be there by the 10th, but whether or not they'll have had enough time to read it is another matter. They've indicated that they would be willing to have a special meeting, and I hope that they do, but either on the 10th or shortly thereafter. But we're hopeful to get this moving.
But once they sign the permit, then we're still at the mercy of the DRB and the new points they've raised. Is that how I'm
Well, not really.
understanding
These points are properly made under the form-based code to the administrative officer. The DRB doesn't have jurisdiction over this issue.
it. So the DRB issues that they have would in theory not hold up the groundbreaking for the building? I mean, we can't buy the building until that's all cleared.
I don't know, Dave. It depends on what the DRB does at subdivision. So,
I mean, realistically, I would hope they don't have much question. This is not exactly like we started it yesterday.
no?
I mean, it's been a couple of years in the making, so hopefully there wouldn't be a question. Tim?
Well, I don't know the motivation other than if they're just trying to ensure that they have, interested person status even at that level for subdivision. I don't know. They're not here to speak to it, so. But if it doesn't impose any kind of an obstacle to the DRB, simply going ahead and considering that application, then I guess you don't have any choice just to move forward with it, right?
I think that's absolutely.
We will.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
We need to.
I mean, the worst case scenario is the DRB sees a letter and goes, what is this, right? I mean, it would be different if it were a case where it was like a PUD and, we're in interim zoning and the TDRs are in flux. It's nothing like that at all. It's simply a statement by an interested party concerning this application. It's just testimony apparently, right?
Well, and if that's what it is, then we should just keep moving.
Yeah.
Well, we will certainly
keep-
try
But
to.
they're asking the DRB to take specific actions that are on matters not before the DRB,
Yeah.
which is confusing at best. And
Right.
But I have faith that the DRB can
So do I.
figure that
Yep.
out and won't get waylaid by something that,
So what prompted you to say we might be able to get some of this road work going August 1st? What's changed? Because
Early
last
August.
I thought we were looking at pushing that all off till first thing.
Well, not the building.
No,
The
first
building
thing-
can't move forward without the permits for
Right.
stormwater. But the road is covered under a different stormwater permit.
Yeah,
So we could get that roughed in, and one of the things they want is what they're calling unfettered access. Well, if we can get the road in,
they got unfettered
we got
access.
unfettered access. But if we can't get the road in and it's just a construction zone then it's fettered access, I guess. Never heard that phrase before.
So why wouldn't we be able to get the road in? I mean, it seems like, I thought that was something we were saying, unfortunately, we're gonna have to wait till school's out next year to do this, and now we can do it, now you think we can pull it off?
no, what
Well-
we're waiting next year after school is to do the stormwater stuff
Which includes the parking lot.
and the
Oh, right.
parking lot
So if we can do the
and paving the
road,
road probably.
Yeah. So if we can get the road in,
yeah,
giving them the access that they want, before
We should be in good shape.
or as soon as possible after the students comes back, then, and Market Street's done, then they should, when it gets done and passable, probably in late September, or early October, then they're
Should-
gonna have the good access.
they should jump up and down and be excited.
Yeah.
You'd like to
Well,
think.
let's just hope it
Yep.
is, we don't know what the impetus is. Maybe they just want to underscore their concerns about safety, and this is just another way to do that, although it
We get it.
won't be responded to by the DRB.
All right,
Okay, let's move on to item 6, the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve
so moved,
A, B, C, and D as presented.
so moved.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Yes, just very quickly, I want to thank Jennifer Smith for agreeing to be the alternate member of the Development Review Board. I appreciate that, as she filled out her second term completely and agreed to do this, and that fills an important vacancy for us where we might need it. So we
Nice.
just expressing appreciation to Jennifer, thank you. And the disbursements, normally, I know you've got some vacations going up in your offices, right? So normally we get an Excel spreadsheet in the box for the warrants, and it was a PDF this time, but that's okay. I mean, I know it's July, August. So.
Yeah, it was a little late putting it together, and so we had to send it out separately.
That's okay. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we have a motion that's been made and seconded, so let's have the vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
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 Aye. That passes. Okay. Moving on to item 7, consider and possibly approve the tax rate. And we have Martha Lyons, who will be presenting some written material. Some material that was, this didn't go out in the box, did it? This was separate.
This came out this afternoon.
Yeah, because you didn't get the number.
Yes, we got the school education tax rates late this afternoon.
Oh, you did.
Okay. So do you want to step us through this, the highlights or whatever?
Sure. For the due dates, I just checked the calendar to make sure, and the only one is the March installment. The 15th is actually a Sunday, so I put the date as March 16th, 2020, for the third installment due.
Excuse me.
The first two are fine for August 15th, 2019, and November 15th, 2019. And then I can walk you through, if you want, how I come up with the tax rate, if you like, or if what I handed out is sufficient.
I don't understand how the TIF proceeds.
Yeah, I didn't get the TIF stuff.
So one of the things that I have to do is off from a report that Todd generates from the grand list is the TIF increment. And then the math behind that, this year the TIF increment was $9,373,866. And
Can I interrupt? Just a little bit more detailed than that, Martha. So Todd does the grand list for all properties exclusive of whether they're TIF or non-TIF properties.
correct.
Then you take the TIF properties and subtract them from the grand list for your work.
Yes.
Okay.
So once I have the TIF increment, we can keep 75% of it from the state, so I multiply by 75%. And then since our assessed value is per 100, you multiply by 0.01. And then I have to multiply that value by the municipal tax rate. So that comes out to $38,069.61, which goes in for the TIF proceeds. I then have to increase the tax rate to make up for that difference because it comes out of the general fund. So that's where you see the adjusted municipal rate, and under the city operating, it went from 0.5308 to 0.5320. And then you add in the open space and then the local agreement for the veterans exemption, and add those all up, and that is your 2019-2020 municipal tax rate.
Is it open space or penny per path?
Penny for path is built into the general city operating. The open space is a separate.
Because I didn't see that, yeah, okay.
Yes, that's already added in. So that is added into the voted approved amount to be raised by property tax, the $16,431,649. That includes that penny for pathways.
Did we put it into the city operating and not have it separated out because it has a time certain? It's only for 10 years? Or
Yeah,
5 years?
the debt service is for 10 years.
Okay, and that's why we.
But
did
this
that
is
way?
now incorporated in as part of the general fund, right? It's not a
Yes.
separate.
No, it's not separate. Like the open space, that
Is
penny
separate, yeah.
is separate because that's ongoing every year.
Okay.
If there's something else that's gonna be ongoing every year, we can break that out. But where this is for a limited time, it gets added
Great,
into
okay.
the city
Thank you.
operating.
Okay, are there other questions? So we're going from 0.5308 to 0.5320, okay.
Can I ask what the TIF proceeds were last year?
Last year, they were 19,000 and some change, just under 20.
And do you remember what last year's final tax rate was, municipal only?
Municipal only was 0.5080, I do believe. Mm-hmm.
Well, we added the penny for paths,
Yeah, I know.
which is part of it, and then,
Right. And I know that, well, keep going, so now add in the education tax.
Yes, so the total municipal rate for 1920 is 0.5427. And I just did some quick math, because I know in the budget book, there was for the average assessed home, for what the increase would be in the average assessed condo. Those are now going to increase on the municipal side. The average home assessed at $337,856 is going to increase by $115.89. And an average condo assessed at $232,790 is going to increase by $79.85. And yes, there was an increase on both the education rates, both the homestead and the non-homestead tax rate.
So the last sheet I saw on the internet said that the top 3 tax rates in the state were Winooski, Burlington, and Middlebury, I think. And it was like 2.4, 2.6, and 2.85, something like that. So I think this just knocked us up into like 5th place maybe, or 6th place.
Probably.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from either Martha or anyone on the council?
What happens next year if, well, so what's going to happen next year is the Champlain Housing Trust comes online, building comes online, but it's from a nonprofit. So will that TIF proceed go up even more then when that building's completed?
That is more of a question for Todd.
Oh, okay, I can wait. I can wait till then. That's right. Okay.
To answer your question, yes.
Yes.
It'll go up, it won't go up as much as if it wasn't restricted,
Right.
but it'll go up, yes. And there's
And when-
also,
when the first commercial building comes online, let's say the following year, which we hope there will
it'll all
be,
go up
right?
correspondingly, yeah.
Yeah.
There's 4 new buildings at the east end of Market Street that were
Oh,
only
the housing
partially
ones,
built.
yeah.
They're only partially built this year. I would say
Oh, yeah.
30%-ish, so
Yeah.
that'll come on
Okay.
also.
But we do collect or assess on the 30% that's built by, is it April 1st or something, whatever is done by April 1st? Is that right?
On the ground on April
So
1st.
you get some tax.
We got something there, yeah. Todd LeBlanc, I'm the assessor.
Okay, are there any thoughts? We need to vote on this, right?
No, there's nothing you really need to
We
vote on
don't,
here.
we don't
The
have
rate
to
is-
approve the tax rate?
is approved by the voters.
sure.
They approve it, but-
Okay. This is just, okay.
I mean, in the past, I think you've approved the dates, but the dates pretty much flow.
It's
from the
more,
tax
make
rate.
sure I looked at the calendar correctly, but
Yeah, we don't want to be doing it on a
Should
Saturday.
we look at our calendars to double check?
no, I've already asked somebody to do that, so.
Okay.
Is there a way for, so the voters approved 16.4, right? But we're actually, it was 16.43, but we're actually going to be trying to raise, or 16.47 approximately, right? Was there a possibility of being able to predict that 38,000 back in March for that, to put a better number in front of the voters? Or was that,
That's for the TIF proceeds.
Oh,
or it was just not known at that point in time, or?
We could probably take a guess by using the current year tax rates to see with the new values what it would be. But then again, it depends upon, because that's based upon the education grand list, or the education, sorry, tax rate is how I do the TIF proceeds.
Maybe, it's just a proposal that when we do this budget process next year, right, that we at least offer that information, maybe not on the ballot item itself, right, but as an addendum in the process saying, but based upon what we think the TIF proceeds will be, the actual number that will be, needed will be this, which means that, the $89 increase could be $115. I mean, just to give a range. If you don't really know the exact number, but you know it's going to probably be more, you might want to give a warning on what that range would be, if that's easy to do or feasible.
Well, you might want to, as part of that, you might want to say what is the total increase in the grand list for that year, which also we don't really know at that point.
it's an educated guess.
Yeah. But I think you need to put it in the context of the total grand list went up $1 million, The TIF portion of that was $100,000, so the net increase for tax purposes for the grand list is $900,000. That would put it in the context of how much the grand list went up, which I think would be important too.
Any other questions, Tim? Or David?
Nope, not at all. It's pretty, I mean, it's complicated to begin with, so it's explained about as well it's gonna get explained. I think it's relatively clear.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks,
So,
Tim.
actually, Todd, you can just get comfortable. Item 8 is consider and possibly approve a contract award for appraisal services.
I think Andrew has sent you guys
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
the
long
packet stuff that I got.
contract.
We did put the RFP out. We got one answer. It was the company I had hoped it would be. It's the company who did our last one. I knew that they were going to be in Burlington at the same time period, and in doing so, we got a very favorable rate to do it. So basically now it comes down to, I just discussed with Andrew the legalities. He went through what was sent out. He doesn't see anything that can't be negotiated in making the contract, nothing outlandish, and it should be fine. So basically what comes down to is I need you guys to authorize me to tell them yes as I go.
So they're they're gonna be in Burlington, and they're reassessing parts of Burlington, or?
All of Burlington.
All of Burlington.
Right.
And are they intending to work in parallel on South Burlington with extra people, or finish Burlington and do South Burlington while they're here?
They will have multiple people. Neither municipality will be shorted. The people who are the experts running the show will probably overlap. One of the biggest benefits of doing it at the same time is the sales data that they'll be collecting, Burlington and South Burlington at the same time. And that just gives it a larger base to extract our numbers from. So it's beneficial to both Burlington and South Burlington. More beneficial to us because we got a much better dollar figure.
Is Burlington comp information relevant to South Burlington for assessment, or for reappraisal process?
Yes and no.
It is? Yes and no?
They have lakefront, we have lakefront. They have much more commercial than we do. We don't have really any industrial. But the houses are houses, and if you have similar neighborhoods, then yeah, it's relevant. We came in under $50 a parcel, and most of what I had seen out there was probably a low of 75 to a high of 110. So
That's pretty good.
And can you just briefly tell us what their process is? I mean, they're gonna randomly choose a number of properties to audit?
they will inspect conceivably every property in person.
Oh, okay.
They'll make 3 attempts.
Really? Wow.
Yep, 3 attempts to get in. If you can't get in after that, you send a questionnaire.
How many homes is it?
We have about 8,000 total parcels. We have over 3,000 condos and around 3,700 houses. So they'll go, they'll inspect every one of them. They'll verify the information we have as far as bedroom count, bathroom count, finished basements, quality of the interior, take pictures of the outside of the house on 2 corners so that we get 4 sides, do a sketch, and move on to the next one. They'll do a sweep of a neighborhood. They'll be identified, wearing vests. The biggest thing that we do once we get this rolling, because they're supposed to start in August, that was our date, is public relations. Get it out to the people that we're gonna be doing this for the 2021 grand list, not next year, the year after. So we've got a year, 2 years to do this. We don't want anybody surprised. They know it's coming. The last reappraisal, people were shocked because their values doubled. And it wasn't a shock to me. I knew they were going to. But the publicity, the people weren't informed as well as they could have been. So this time, we're gonna keep an eye on that and get it out to the people so they're not so shocked, if you will.
So what you're saying is people, the values doubled, but that didn't necessarily mean their taxes were going to double, and people didn't understand that.
They didn't think their assessment was gonna double, and because they didn't understand that the tax rate wasn't gonna stay the same, that's when they got panicky. But yes, you're right. When the value doubles, you don't get to make any more money from a reappraisal. You get to adjust the tax rate accordingly, and a lot of people didn't understand that.
Right.
Now, some people's values are going to go up. Right now, the market's higher than it was in 2006, so we're expecting it to go up unless something happens in the next 2 years. When it goes up, yours might go up, and you're gonna say, hey, how come mine went up so much? And yours may go down, and you're gonna say, I don't wanna say down, lower than expected. And you're gonna say, well, why? Why didn't his go up as much as mine? What that means is, you skated through for the last 15 years, and you've been overpaying for the last 15 years, okay? That's the biggest goal for this reappraisal, is that after 15 years, there's inequity, even on the street. One person comes in when the market's down and says, hey, my assessed value isn't what you've got me at. And they're right, I've got to change it. I can't assess it any more than 100% of value. So when they're right, you change the value and you go on. The guy on either side never comes in. Now the equity in taxes is off. And that's what the biggest thing what we're trying to eliminate right now.
So remind me, are we trying to get everybody assessed at fair market value or
We're going to
what?
shoot for 100% fair market value, yes. And like I said, some houses will go up more than others, and we won't know till we're actually done.
And the company makes the determination as to what fair market value will be?
Yes. We look at the sales. The sales of all the properties, I'm going to use the airport for example. Williston Road, Patchen Road, and the airport. That's a neighborhood. All the houses over there are roughly worth about the same per square foot. So if you grab 60 sales, you know pretty much how much a square foot is worth. And then you go through and you make the values on the properties based on their square footage and how many bathrooms they have and how many bedrooms and if they have a finished basement, if they have a garage. So you put all the attributes in, and then you've got your background numbers that we figured out by looking at the sales, and it spits out a number. And that number should be generally pretty close to fair market value.
And we're doing commercial as well.
Yes. Except for the airport.
So in general, if you look at the age of a home being the oldest to the newest, right, then probably the disparities are greatest in those older homes as you approach the newest homes, because when they're built and constructed, the price you paid is the assessed value, right, in general? Brand new homes? No?
You can take a brand-new home, say over in O'Brien or in South Village, and the value that's established is based on sales. But one house may have all these extras that they added in. Gold faucets and chrome countertops and God knows what. That in the real world aren't going to make a difference in the sale, okay? So you can't penalize them for that because it's not the fair market value. It was a value to them, but it's not the general public wouldn't appreciate what they did. So that sale price isn't necessarily its market value.
But in a newer development where the homes are all going for like, $420 to $480, you're probably gonna have assessments in the $450 range, let's say, right?
They'll be fairly
Whereas
close.
in a neighborhood that was built after the Korean War, right, and it's getting a little hot because of a certain school that might be near, right? Those neighborhoods, you can look at the sale prices and the assessed values are down here. And that, this is.
Currently,
Currently.
when we're done,
Well, right, that'll all change.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly, right.
Queen City Park is a good example. Queen City Park has been around for a long time. Traditionally, it wasn't one of the better neighborhoods. Now, some of the sales are mind-boggling. And that's going to affect Queen City Park's values.
It's an interesting process,
It is.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
I guess.
What is
Well,
our-
I appreciate the outreach and education to the public, because it is, it's difficult for people to understand it, and becomes very personal my home.
Exactly.
Well, remind me, when I bought my first house in 92, the assessment was 66 2/3, I think, that was the assessed value, and then they changed it to 100% of assessed value.
As long as I've been doing it, it's been 100%.
When did you start?
In 98.
So I think in 92, the assessments were based on 96 2/3, right? Then at some, huh?
It could have been.
And then after that, they went to 100, and then there was a reassessment, and then there've been 2 reassessments, I think, since.
There was one in 98.
98.
And there was one
2006?
in 2006. There's something called the common level of appraisal. Right now, it's 93 point something %. That may be what is being referred to.
No. When I first bought my house on Meadow Road, right, the tax bill, the assessed value of the property was at 66 2/3. And then they did a change a few years later, and the value of the property was raised to 100% of its true appraisal, right? But then the rate changed as well, so it was a net sum of zero, difference of zero.
Well,
But
that's what'll happen, and that's what it's so important that people understand, because if they don't get that through clearly, then people get really scared really fast.
Right.
And that's just, I see that, you just said it a few minutes ago, that's the most critical part of the whole thing, I think.
In the last reappraisal, Pinnacle Drive
Yeah.
was the hot spot. And there weren't any sales in the year or two before the reappraisal. But being the hot spot, they ended up having the highest increase in value. Now, there's, I think, 60 houses in there, and there weren't any sales. And then after the reappraisal, there was 15 sales.
Wow.
And it came down to the people were panicking over the taxes.
Yeah, we really should have done that.
When if they'd have just watched, paid attention, yes, the tax rate's gonna drop. And you will feel an impact, yes. Will it be double? No.
Todd, you've got, speaking to the public education plan that we really need to put together, when is the first date at which members of the public, homeowners, would start seeing activity and questioning it? Is it the May 1, 2020 field collection?
Somewhere in there, yes.
So we have
We
a
haven't
little
nailed down the date, but it'll be the spring of next year.
About 10 months.
10 months to really start putting information out to the public as to what they can expect.
Right.
Okay.
Will be sometime in August. We'll get this done. They have to start, I forget what the date was, but it's in August. And that'll be, doesn't mean they come in with a whole bunch of people and start doing things. It means they come in, we sit down and we iron these things out. How are we gonna do the public relations? Where are you guys gonna be in here? What do we have for equipment coming? Because the price that's in here is their contract. We're gonna have other expenses on top of that. But we gotta hash out where they're gonna work, what equipment we need, do they need a printer, do they need a color printer, things like this. So that technically is the start. And then they'll start gathering the sales data. That's something that can be done in the wintertime because it's all numbers. The field inspections, generally in the spring, when you can get out and not be stuck in a snowstorm or muddy roads type thing, which we don't have to deal with, but we'll get it done as soon as we can so that come the next spring, when we have to put out the values, we'll have that stuff ready.
when they're done, they give you a CD with everything they did, all the pictures and all the spreadsheets, all the reports and everything, and so. You did, last time?
Last time,
So,
yes.
okay, so every picture they took of every house is on a CD that you were given? Okay, all right, just making sure.
Years ago, or 13 years ago now, it's somewhere.
So when they pull sales data, where do they get it from?
Clerk's office, MLS, they've been doing this long enough. They've been doing this for like 80 years. So it's not like it's their first rodeo.
Probably have a pretty easy way to do that, right?
They've found ways to do it, which is why they can do it inexpensively, comparatively. And they've got their methods, and I'm sure they're not gonna tell us, but when I have to do it, I go to the sales. I Google. I got a sale that comes through. It's a $500,000 house and it sells for $900,000. I Google the address, find the sales ad, grab the pictures. Oh, look, it's got a finished basement. Oh, look, they redid the kitchen. These are the things that you find in the best way I can, because I'm limited in manpower. But I'd be able to use those resources. It'd be nice if we had MLS, which we'll probably get for this, and there's an Allen and Brooks report. They're a company that does commercial reappraisals, and they have a big thick book. They do all the commercial sales in the area, and that's an invaluable tool for doing our commercial stuff.
Okay. And all of the money, the $389,000, that's set aside in Montpelier in the state, so it's funded in.
It's here. We have it.
We have it, but
We're given money every year,
But we're given money
roughly
from them, okay.
$75,000, to maintain the grand list and for reappraisal. And that's been saved, and we're, I want to say $500,000 right now. And then over the next 2 years, we'll have another $150,000. So we've got the money to do it, which is good. Last time, we used 5 years worth of savings and 5 years going ahead to pay for it. Otherwise, we'd have even more money now, but that was how they planned it last time, because the window was so close, 98 to 2006, only 8 years.
Okay.
Well, I move that we approve the contract award to Tyler.
Tyler Technologies, yep.
For,
And not approve the contract, because we haven't settled the contract yet.
Oh, what do we have to do?
You're just authorizing me to,
Oh, yes.
To negotiate the contract?
yeah,
Would that be the right
the
term?
word, to award the contract to Tyler.
I move that we approve your ability to award a contract for reappraisal services.
Second.
Any further conversation, discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
And let me just
If you-
clarify, we pay for that with our we budget for this?
No, as Todd noted, we get
It comes from the state.
money
Oh,
from the state.
I'm
to
sorry,
do
I
this.
missed that.
Yeah.
We have a savings account that has the money in
Okay.
it. If you have ideas on how you want to publicize, get those ideas to me and we can work them out.
Before you go,
Uh-oh.
can we talk about Hannaford and La Quinta? What happened there?
Oh, yeah.
La Quinta, they both appealed
Yep.
by headhunters. La Quinta
by what?
headhunters. There are companies out there that do this, that's their business, appeal properties. La Quinta, when I looked at it, I was shocked they hadn't appealed before. They had originally been a hotel and a piece of land separately because it was leased from, I think, Pomelo in the shopping center. So they had two separate assessments, and at some point along the way they bought the land, it got combined together, and nobody ever looked at it. So when they came in this year, it's like, So I looked at it, and for some reason, their land grade was almost 3 times what everybody else's was, for one. And then their grade on the building itself. So I compared it to all the other hotels. Holiday Inn, the new ones, all these hotels around in the area, and graded them accordingly, to be fair and equitable. And that's what happens. The value, they were right. They picked a good one to appeal. They made money on that one. Lowe's tried to appeal last year. That's the Hannaford one, I think. Tried to appeal last year. They missed the deadline. They also appealed in Essex, and the Essex assessor and I worked together to come up with a rebuttal to what they had sent in, which was correct, but not as correct as they wanted it to be. So that one there could have been even less. But again, they were right. Lowe's here and Lowe's in Essex have 2 different values as they appear, because in Essex they own the land. Here they lease the land from Hannaford's. So it's in a different window. But the drops are real.
So looking at that, what happened, what's the story with the Latter-day Saints?
That was a property that's non-taxable. They're looking to sell it.
Right?
Being non-taxable, nobody ever looked at what it was worth on paper. It doesn't mean anything, it's non-taxable.
I see.
Oh.
Okay.
So the people coming in who wanted to buy it said, hey, whoa. And I looked at it, and they had an appraisal done. It was pretty simple. It was some simple number calculations, changing some grades and stuff. So that doesn't affect anything.
Actually, the other big one is Morway, third one down.
That was a The Eau Claire Farm.
Oh, okay, fine.
Well, you know,
Yeah, I got it.
they subdivided it up in the
Yeah, I got
last.
it.
Yeah. Now, something you don't see on there that affected your tax rate was the Tilly Drive sale. 2 buildings sold.
Oh, yeah, you
Oh,
mentioned
right,
that.
They were,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That came non-taxable.
went from taxable to non-taxable.
I've reached out to the medical center because they have a history of providing a payment in lieu of tax to us. It's not as much as they were taxed when it was privately owned buildings that they were leasing, but they are working on that schedule for us right now. But that's outside of Todd's
Yeah.
realm.
Right, but I knew it had happened at Escalapius. When they bought those buildings, they volunteered to pay a pilot because they knew there was an impact to the city. And I told Tom, I said, you know, they do it over there, check and see if they'll do it over here. So,
didn't
but
you
that
have
was a
some
big hit.
role in that legislation way back when?
Pilot, yeah.
Yeah,
Amy Davenport and I introduced it.
yes.
Yeah,
Are you aware what the,
Good for us,
Good for us.
right?
that's right.
are you aware what the original sale price was of the Latter-day Saints property?
Oh,
I mean, no, just, I mean, recently, when it was first
It
put up on
hasn't
the
sold
sign.
yet.
No, it hasn't, but there's a sign up front, right?
Right.
And I could have sworn, I looked at it, and I thought it was like 900 and some odd thousand. Then I read in the paper that the Islamic Society wants to buy it, but they're looking at a price of 1.1 million. I'm like, was there a bidding war that occurred on that property, or what changed,
It's a
or
possibility.
what did I miss?
I know there was
I
there
don't-
were others interested.
There were others interested. Oh,
I don't know what it will sell for yet.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
what the appraisal came in.
Right.
If it's an abutter, for instance, they may pay more for it. Somebody else may just want it more than somebody else. And-
no, I was just curious. I mean, there have been bidding wars that have been erupting lately in just regular residential
Right, it's a
real
good
estate. so,
location.
Yeah. yeah.
That's something that will be compensated for in the reappraisal. You know, sales of properties like that don't happen a lot, but the more we can get, the better off we will be.
Okay. Any other questions about any of these? Some of them are kind of shocking, though. It's like, whoa. Yeah. David, did you have another?
No, that's it. I mean, that was, you know, those things happen.
Oh, yeah, yeah, no. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, number 9. We need Amanda, don't we? This is a public hearing and possible action on amendments or repeal of city ordinances.
I move that we enter into a public hearing on the repeal of city ordinances, motor vehicle and traffic ordinance, and parking ordinance, if we can do them together.
I think we can.
Let me go find one.
Do I have a second?
Yep,
Okay, all in favor?
yeah.
Aye.
So we will open this public hearing, and we'll take a moment and get our lawyer. We're ahead of schedule, so,
That's nice.
you know, usually we're behind, so.
We have 3 members of the public here for the public hearing. Okay, maybe 1 member of the public here for the public hearing? Oh, okay, got 1. What is it about our agenda tonight? There's only 3 people in the audience. Let me try to figure that out.
I guess that's
Summer.
probably good.
The word says repeal, but it's also to put in these new ones. right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, it's eerily quiet. This doesn't
I
usually happen.
know.
I'd be glad to
don't
read you
want
this.
Always
comments
can we-
yet, right?
I can read you this speech by Frederick Douglass while they're gone.
You don't
Thanks.
want comments at this point.
Is there any reason we can't have comments?
I mean, I'm ready. And-
Okay, sure.
But
I
if
guess
you
we
don't,
can,
I mean.
although Amanda might want
I
to
mean,
hear them to
Amanda
help
may
us,
wanna-
yeah.
Okay. Shouldn't be long. How things at your end of the street?
Very nice.
Good.
Gonna mess up my house, though. I hear reappraisal's coming. I let it overgrow.
But that does it. Well, it'd be a good excuse for me to tell Jane to stop the landscaping.
Yeah, right.
No more of that.
No more trips to Lowe's.
It's amazing how those accelerate in the warm weather, you know?
Okay, so we have opened our public hearing. And This is our fourth hearing on this, correct?
Hearings, maybe the second or third, but there's been some drops along as well.
Okay.
So, yes, I'm the Deputy City Attorney, Amanda Lafferty. And the council has seen the parking ordinance and the motor vehicle and traffic ordinance before. The only changes from the last time are to the parking ordinance, and that was to paragraph 3A, the double parking explanation. And then in 4, the opening paragraph, instead of 12 hours, it's 24 hours is the ceiling on the time period that these types of vehicles can be stopped or parked on a public road or highway.
Those were the only changes from the last time.
That's correct.
Okay. So,
Is that all I can comment on is the last changes, or can I?
No.
'Cause I-
no, you can
I must
comment
have
on the
missed a
whole
couple
thing.
iterations. So it's Bob Britt, 3 Adams Court. Bob Britt, 3 Adams Court. And I just want to say I'm so appreciative of the city and the council for adding sections like on vulnerable users to the motor vehicle and the rec path on the parking ordinance, and that's been great. I just had one comment on the wording on the motor vehicle one, and it was 10E. And again, this is a concern. Right now, it just says, a person operating a motor vehicle shall not turn left unless the turn can be made at a safe distance from a vulnerable user. And I don't know why it wouldn't say left or right, because the right turn is the one that's most dangerous for bicyclists and for pedestrians when people glide through the stop sign or the traffic light. And just instead of just saying left, and I'm not sure, maybe there's a reason why it's just left.
I'm trying to remember the reason. Might not be able to answer that.
But the rest of it, the A through D, I mean,
I think
everything's
it's-
great.
Sorry, I think it's because the state law, for whatever reason, didn't, and that's, I'm sorry, I'd have to brush up on the details, but the state law didn't directly address that either. They only had the language for a left turn in the, maybe that's what it was in the vulnerable user sections, but I could be misremembering that.
The vulnerable user in this case in making a left turn would be somebody on the opposite side of the road going the direction you intend to go, right?
Coming at you would be, if you're taking a left turn
If you're taking
in
a
a
left
car
turn,
as a driver.
I'm thinking if you're the driver of the car, let's say, and you want to make a left-hand turn, the vulnerable users I'm thinking of are the ones that are going from right to left on the road that you want to continue onto, probably?
I was thinking it was oncoming.
I mean, it could be oncoming, it could be the ones that are coming from both
Either way,
directions, right?
Right, but I'm talking about a car taking a right turn.
A right-hand turn.
Which is where you get the most conflict.
Sure, because they're coming from your
T-bone.
blind spot
They're
over
coming
your,
from
or your
your
right
blind spot.
over your right shoulder. It seems almost the right is more
Well,
of a concern than the left.
a left turn crosses 2 lanes, right? Where a right turn only crosses 1 lane. And if you have a vulnerable user in your lane gets turning right with you, they should be either in front of you or behind you. They shouldn't be turning at the same time as you,
I suppose they're going straight.
as opposed to going straight or whatever. I mean, I see your point, but
Well, pedestrians are included
included, right?
in the definition of vulnerable.
Okay.
So that's also part of it, is.
It's for both.
Is there any legal reason we can't add right?
No, I just wish I could remember the explanation, but,
We were
No,
trying
we
to
can-
make these similar to the state.
Yeah, yeah.
Or reflect that. So that's,
Well, that's true, that would be
so
a,
Bob, that was
that
our
would be a
template.
contradiction.
Yeah, and
And they
that's
were
why I
silent on it, but that doesn't mean we have to be
First
silent. I mean, I
understand.
think your point is well taken.
Well, why don't we, I mean, did that become a ticketable offense then? I don't, if it, somebody says, well, that's contrary to state law, and where was I supposed to find out that South Burlington has a different rule?
It would, if it would be deemed, if that were included, it would be considered, and someone did not follow that, then it would be considered a violation of the ordinance. And ignorance of the law is not an excuse, so.
No, except if it's somebody that, if it's different from every other town in the state, how the heck do we expect somebody to know
You wouldn't
what
want
it
it
is
to
in
be
South
used as a
Burlington?
defense, though. Oh, I wasn't making a left turn, I was making a right, so it's okay to hit somebody. That's an extreme.
That they're certainly, if someone, even if it's not expressly in,
State.
the city's ordinance, if someone is driving unsafely or,
Oh, sure.
injures somebody, obviously that's,
They're going to be responsible.
that wouldn't need to be expressly, but,
But Bob's trying to avoid
Yeah.
someone being hurt.
Yes.
I don't have the answer to that at my fingertips, so.
Okay.
I'd have to-
If there's nothing legally preventing us from putting that in, would you be in favor then of adding right into there?
Right, I might
Yeah, right, not
draft it
left.
a little differently, but I might add more than just, and right turns. But, yes, that's.
Right
it's-
turns too.
Right, it's, it's allowed, yes.
Well, then let's do, I think that's probably the thing to do. But I don't have full knowledge. You're gonna do some research and find out if we're gonna get ourselves in
We
a
have to rewarn
jam.
this and go through it back through the process.
Yeah, we do.
Any
But-
other ones that we gotta think about, Bob? I mean, this is our second round with
Right.
Sorry.
This is our
That's all right.
fifth reading?
That'll give us more time to.
fifth reading.
It's not like
I
it,
still think
Resolutions.
50 feet is too far from the intersection,
That-
but that's
That
okay.
I have,
But
that
that's,
was.
if
a
it's
requ-
okay, it's, I
He's,
won't, I'm not
he's talking
questioning.
about parking. is it-
Parking, yeah.
To the intersection, it's fine, yeah.
It was D, 3D.
Within 50.
In the parking ordinance, and that was, I checked in, that was a request from the Public Works.
Good.
And
And that's fine.
thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thank you, sorry.
Well, it's not like it's an
No,
emergency,
that's
so.
why you have all these hearings, right? That's the process. So, is everyone amenable to,
Let's go for 6.
okay, so if you will redraft that one section,
if there's,
so it includes in logical language, making a right turn and the consequences to a vulnerable
Thanks
user.
again for the ordinance.
We'll get it done.
Okay,
Do we need to move to close the public hearing then?
So are there,
we need to, and then set the next one.
yes, are there any other comments from the public? All right,
I move
so-
we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the public hearing is closed, and we need to set a date for the next one. So that'll
Next
be
one
in
will be pretty quick,
August,
so-
right? It has to
think so,
be
because
3 weeks or
there's not
something.
enough time
Yeah.
and working with the other paper's schedule as well.
First meeting,
August 5th or the one after?
first week in August? Is anybody gonna be here?
I don't know. We've
What
got,
do you mean, is anyone gonna be here?
we gotta make sure we gotta,
I'll be here the 5th. I can be here the 5th.
It's the 5th, August
it's
5th.
the 5th or the 19th, right?
I will not be here on the 5th. I will be here on the 19th.
Tim,
I should, I'll be here.
on both?
Yeah.
It's not an emergency, you can wait.
Dave?
Either or. So go to the 19th. That's fine.
Give us plenty of time.
Not like we're in a smash and hurry on this, right? Doesn't matter.
Correct, and, on the bright side, it will also give the city additional time to complete the field work for the resolutions that both ordinances call for.
Fine.
Okay, so we'll work to warn that for the 19th.
Okay, at a time certain, 7:30? Does that sound good?
Is that okay? Yeah,
On the
7:30
19th?
works well
Unless you-
for us.
I mean, if we could put the consent agenda on the other side of it if you want and get her in here earlier, if that works for the public, so that she can go home earlier if she prefers to do that.
What would you like?
Either is fine.
Well, 7 o'clock?
7:30, but.
We can-
because- Well, go ahead.
No, we can do it right after, or right before the consent agenda.
Sometimes you have executive sessions that are hard to anticipate at this point.
That's
And if you have
true.
it at 7, it kind of
Okay,
limits
let's
your time.
stick with 7:30 then. It's still light then. It's not the middle of winter. You'll be able to go home in the
Days will be getting
shorter. They are.
Don't say that yet.
Don't say that. My husband does that all the time.
I don't wanna hear it.
He starts saying
We
how
just
many
started,
days
for
until
God's sake.
Christmas.
will be forming on the milkweed.
All right, so 7:30 on the 19th of August. And you'll have the resolutions perhaps ready at that point.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Okay. Item 10, council discussion and advice related to an interim zoning open space committee classification and scoring of a 15-acre property in the southeast quadrant. Is Paul? Are we just like freewheeling this one?
Paul's upstairs, if you need him to come in on this. I think he understands what's going on. Perhaps the folks
Well, I
who are
think
here-
I do too. Would you want to come forward and,
Sure. I don't really know,
why don't you sit down and introduce yourselves to the camera and then, I mean, I think I understand this, that when the Open Space Committee was looking at parcels for interim zoning, the 15-acre carve-out of parcel B in the sale with your family was left in, so they were looking at the whole parcel that, and
It's- yes.
included your property.
yeah, yes and no. So, Robert and Jennifer Morway. So it was really just a question I proposed, and I think Megan wanted an answer because she didn't really know the answer, which is how we're here. But, so if you look at that 15 acres and you go through every one of those maps, there's nothing, there's no riparian or, there's no wetlands, there's none of the things that they're looking at for their tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. There is slopes. Obviously, that's the thing that does come up.
Slope, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Slopes, yeah. I mean, it's the highest point, so there are,
Is this where the old barn is located?
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
So it's that highest ridge
yeah,
area?
Yeah.
yeah.
But the one thing that does come up that makes it a tier 1 and like a problem zone is it's on the 2002 open space map. So that where South Burlington wanted open space. And so Megan was saying it had to be something related to environmental for it to be on this open space map, but then we couldn't find a backup for that. So no one was really quite understanding why just that curve is all blacked out for open space. So I guess the question that was being presented, and so the idea was, is it that that was based on an old report, and maybe it's either outdated, invalid, or, in other words, is it supposed to be on, because if it's on tier 1, what open space is using for tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, if it's on tier 1 is anything that's on the 2002 open space map, that's like a big red flag for being able to build something there. For points, that's like the second, do you have the matrix? I'm kind of going off of memory.
I haven't been to one of their meetings. They have one tomorrow. I was hoping to go.
Right.
So they have, it makes sense the way, I'm not opposed to anything that they're necessarily doing on this. It's really just a question about it, but, so they have 3 tiers listed. And if the things that are most important aren't necessarily are in tier 1, and if you get, a certain amount of points on tier 1, then it starts limiting building that can happen. Tier 2, there'll be other things. So on tier 1, one of the top ones is this land designated on the 2002 open space? So it is, but it's not designated towards anything else, but that can kind of cancel out everything. So without anyone knowing why it's on that 2002 open space report?
But it was.
That I don't know, but I also understand the few minutes I was there, the open space committee is looking, they're looking at all the property, and then they're trying to winnow it down to the top, 4 or 5 parcels. It's not enormous numbers of parcels, as I understand it, to actually say these are our top priorities. So if the city were to go about wanting to purchase, let's say, some, and invest in some more open space, these would be the prime areas to go for.
Right, and that's kind of what I was honestly thinking of why it was on the 2002 open space. It wasn't actually environmentally listed. If that makes sense, is I know at one point the
Right.
town was talking about wanting to purchase that, but then since then, they've been given that opportunity, they didn't want to purchase it. So I guess my question was, if that was the case, why
Why are they looking at it?
Have you talked to them?
Yeah, so she sent me here.
Well, but
'Cause
have
she
you had this
didn't-
discussion with the committee about what they're thinking is?
They're
right?
gonna do it, so basically what they're trying to do is they were trying to not look at it on a per parcel basis. They were really trying to look at it as a broad, and it makes sense what they're saying. She's saying anything that was on the 2002 open space report of what they wanted to keep open was really supposed to be environmentally related. So therefore, if it was environmentally related, then it should really be in the tier 1 to be able to say this is important, that we take a look at it before we build something. That makes sense to me. But when you look at the parcel on all of the state, town, those fancy maps that they have out now, there's nothing else there that makes it environmental or, that makes sense.
You're concerned that this could affect your ability to build on that property later on?
It would. And so I think what Megan was trying to be able to find out was, she said she wasn't involved in the 2002 open space piece. So she was kind of looking for, if I'm understanding this correct, she was looking for guidance from the city council to be able to say why it was there in the first place, so they could decide whether or not that should be a factor, or if they need to make exceptions to factors, or, because they're really trying to look at it as an open space and, and
Yeah, no, I think in 2002, it was probably just most of the southeast quadrant was considered, that's where the open space is.
well, if you look at the map though that they're using, I wish I had and I don't have enough Wi-Fi in here to do it, but if you look at the map, if you looked from like near NATO's, do you know where Leo?
Yes, yeah.
So,
My neighbor.
yeah, so basically, right above your house, down to past Leo NATO's, and then that strip all the way across to where Heather is, all the way down to Muddy Brook. So there's a small portion of that which is in that view quadrant, but the rest of it's not. It's just, they listed it as they would like to keep it open.
Are you going to tomorrow's meeting?
I mean, yeah, but.
I'd rather not.
What are you asking for? That's
We
just,
did-
some
we
of us
didn't-
are still confused.
Right.
What is it that you're asking?
We didn't ask for this meeting. Megan just emailed, so what she emailed me was that she put this on the docket, because we didn't ask for the meeting. She said,
That we need to come in front
the
of you
council
and
will be,
address it.
requesting this on Monday, and I just said, just out of curiosity, why are we going to the council? Like, why? And she said, the committee works for the council and depends on its direction.
I think she wanted, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It is also on the committee's agenda for the following night in case the council agrees.
Yeah,
Please just send you to tomorrow's meeting.
Yeah, I think maybe she wanted us to say, yeah, Open Space Committee, you should look at this 15-acre piece maybe differently. I don't know.
It wasn't clear in the emails that she sent, or it wasn't to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you get anything from the emails she sent?
Well, I thought she was asking us to kind of task the Open Space IZ Committee to look at this specifically. And I'm okay asking them to do that, because it sounds like you have some confusion, and they might also. I don't know what the outcome of that.
Right.
I can't predict that they will say, oh yeah, we'll just carve that up, and that's, you know.
No, like I said, we presented a question and we,
Yeah.
you know, that was
Well,
that's
I'm
essentially.
I'm sorry we don't have the answer, but, you know, we're sort of, but we certainly can ask that committee to look specifically at that 15 acres to figure out if in fact it should be part of that broader conversation, or if in fact it really isn't, doesn't rise to, I mean, it's probably on one of the tiers, because it's open space right now.
Right, and there's slopes and, you know,
There's slopes
absolutely,
and there's
right.
views and-
Yeah, it just comes down to that tier one kind of stops everything.
Well, maybe not. I mean, that's their recommendation.
Right, absolutely,
It isn't, I mean, just because they've identified, I mean, I think the whole point was to have them come up with a grid, have some parameters or issues about how you look at land and how you would then say, oh, this is really valuable land for, you know, whatever, riparian areas or the watershed or whatever it is. And we should be very careful with those. I don't think they anticipated, I didn't anticipate them coming back and saying, oh, we should just have no development anywhere. There may be some people on that committee who would like that. But I think they had this tiered approach so that it was really to focus on the most vulnerable properties or the most valuable or something.
If I'm understanding how they're doing it, it sounds kind of like the way Williston does it, only in reverse. So if you have a certain amount of points, like each thing you do gets a point. When you get to a certain point, then it reduces what you can build or could build. You know, again, we're not looking to put up, so it's not necessarily a huge deal, minus the fact that that open space area is exactly where we want to build our future home. So.
What are you building up on the hill?
So there's nothing, it's just right now, it's just a trailer we're building so that while we're up there, we can be. It's on wheels, yeah. So we can kind of move it around when we're up there and have a place to put everything that's currently scattered everywhere.
Like a
Done
portable
some nice
tiny home.
clearing of
Yeah.
the land. It's really, really beautiful. but
Yeah, and if it ever
I
stops
haven't
raining, we might
trespassed,
be able
so
to.
I had to ask.
Right?
We might actually be able to brush hog
Okay.
if it ever stops raining.
Well, I think it makes sense to ask the committee they're the ones that have been doing the work. They've got more background and certainly than I do. And I think they'll see it appropriately, logically, hopefully. And I think that's the best route to go.
I can ask the staff who will be staffing the committee
Sure.
to take a, based upon this conversation, at the meeting tomorrow, have a discussion about it.
Okay, I'm sorry you had to come in and
Nope.
wait.
That's okay.
At least we're not running really late.
I know,
House
you
is
guys are
still
gonna be out of here in no time.
Brings it out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay. Council's reports from committee assignments. Well, I already gave you mine for the airport.
TDR committee has not met.
Okay, and I guess open space IZZ meeting tomorrow, so we can move on to item 12. This is the discussion and possible approval of a letter to the city of Burlington related to the recent changes in zoning in the southern portion of the city of Burlington, some of which borders on the city of South Burlington. And we have the letter that Tom and Megan drafted together, or somebody drafted it and then there were edits. And I guess the question is the council comfortable with sending this letter? I think in some of the, I don't know, conversations and emails and how things were transpiring with the public and interacting with us and then the city of Burlington's actions, I think it just to me illustrated, an example of something getting, not being informed and then acting earlier than after the fact. But it sounds as if we still have, I think, a really important and opportunity to be part of their process where they go with, what is it called? How they determine how you can use
The DRB process?
their DRB process.
The permitting process.
And that we should be making a case, because I think there are some issues that are affecting some of our residents in a similar way as it's affecting some of the neighborhoods in Burlington. It's not just Queen City Park that is concerned about noise and traffic. And then I think the whole issue with Red Rocks, and that's kind of a separate, it might be aggravated by having lots of large venues of music where there's alcohol consumed. And
I don't think it's lots, isn't it just the higher ground? They changed the zoning ordinance for any.
I think most of there's a whole bunch of
Townscape Park.
beer places and stuff. The
Wow.
beer producers, and they want to have more than just a tasting room. They would like to make this, and I think that was the whole conversation that Burlington was having in terms of this zoning change. This is economic development. This is an area in our community that seemed to many people to lend itself to that kind of development. But it does impact some of their neighborhoods, and it certainly impacts ours. And we just didn't get into the conversation soon enough. And that's, that was our responsibility, and we didn't, because the notice did go to the Planning Commission. But I don't think all is lost. I think it's an opportunity for the two communities to work together.
Well, that's pretty much what the letter says, and
Yeah.
and indeed, those concerns are valid and have to be addressed. I was down there the other day, and you drive across that one-lane bridge, and then you see where Red Rocks is, then you drive into Queen City Park, and then you drive into Burton, and it's all, in one tiny little spot. And you imagine what happens when a concert gets out and everybody's trying to go across a one-lane bridge all at the same time. And
Don't forget, when the parkway's complete and people come down 189, they're gonna go underneath Shelburne Road, curve around, they hit
Yeah.
Home Ave, they'll take a left, and they'll be entering the facility from the north. And when they leave, if they wanna get on the interstate, boom, they take a right, they're back on the parkway, they're back on the interstate. It's just, I'm not trying to, I enjoy the spirit of the letter, right? But I think there are probably some projection inaccuracies that, because we're concerned about things that we don't know are gonna happen, what might happen. But I think that some of these concerns are unfounded. But noise is a concern of mine. Which building is it, if you look at Burton, from the north, there are two buildings co-join, and then there's a standalone big white building. Is it that big white building?
That's my understanding.
Okay. That's what I figured. So, That building is about, I think, 800 feet from the nearest building at down Central Ave, approximately, or
Oh,
750.
to the first place.
The
in Queen
first
City
house
Park Road.
that's on the eastern side of Central Ave.
I bet a resident from that area could be very informative at this time.
Yes.
Good timing.
Do you want to move up to the mic and we can just grill you about what you know?
We're talking about this letter that we've written.
Yes, I can do that.
Yes.
Sure, just-
Here in any official capacity.
Well,
One
that's
of the
No,
questions
you're,
there was-
you're a resident of Queen City Park, so this personally could,
Well, okay.
So you're familiar with the proposal for the higher ground in the town skate park that'd be installed in one of the Burton buildings?
Right.
Which Burton building is it? The one that's farthest to the south on the property?
Larry Kupferman. So it's the one facing Queen City Park Road. Further south.
That used to be it was General Dynamics, I guess? Okay.
Before that, it was.
Was it ever Hayward Tyler or something like that,
I
or?
think they were in there, but I think they were the next, they had the other property.
Oh, okay, all right.
You know, I remember when there used to be tanks driven out of the big doors would open up and
Yeah.
a tank would come out on a flatbed going to the firing range for testing. So it's been industrial
Yeah.
it's an industrial park.
yeah.
So what's the distance from that, the southern edge of that building to the closest house on Central Ave? Roughly, I think it's like 600 feet,
1,000
800 feet, something like
1,000
that?
feet. I mean, the entrance to Red Rocks is there,
Yeah,
that whole entrance. And then that would be Lisa Yankowski's house and then the ash lines.
that's right, okay.
So, I would say 1,000 feet. It takes about 5 minutes to walk there to the bus.
Right.
Yeah. So,
How many complaints have we had of noise for higher ground in its current location? Do we have any information on that? And
From noise from the neighbors?
Yeah.
Very few.
But we have had some. There aren't very many neighbors.
Right.
I
very many
think that's
neighbors.
the issue, there aren't very many neighbors right there.
But how close are they? The ones that are there, how close are they? And how much noise do they feel vibrations to the ground? Or, if the door gets open, do they hear? I'm just curious,
Yeah.
quantitatively, what is that building gonna generate based upon how much sound is inside? Oh my God, we're in another sound problem.
Well, it's a different setting though, right? It's where they are now is a setting that is in a commercial area where you have the Williston Road noise. You have other restaurants and
Yeah.
things going on there, so it's not like Queen City Park's a little different that way.
Right.
So I would say there haven't been that many noise complaints from neighbors. And the neighbors are generally, alongside, and on the other
Yeah,
side
there's
of.
some housing.
There's some apartments?
There are
behind it?
apartments, I believe.
Noise can be mitigated in a new facility by retrofitting and when you're renovating, planning for that. I'd be more concerned about the noise when a concert ends and you got a couple of thousand young people pouring out and,
I think that's our major concern, is the infrastructure there is not made for pedestrians or cars. There's no activity there at night now.
well, and then we're concerned about the interrelationship with Red Rocks Park. And gee, on the way out, why don't we go jump off the cliffs or something like that? You know.
We're faced with the quandary of trying to get some status. And we're a fire district, and it's a prudential committee, there could possibly be some formal relations or some request as an abutter. But we actually have people in our neighborhood who own property in Burlington abutting across the railroad tracks. So I think a big part of the discussion is who will get status in their zoning, in their permitting process. Plus the question about the highway that's being built versus a traffic study. They'll have to do a traffic study that'll be both with or without it. But I don't even know what that means at this point in terms of, the issue for us is gonna be access at night. I agree with David, that noise is gonna be mitigated by they don't let, people are going to hear music, they're not gonna let that out for free. So, that's a
Good point,
technological
right?
thing.
Yeah, but in 1986, I stood outside Memorial Auditorium with a sound meter, and the amount of Stevie Ray Vaughan coming through those brick walls was enormous. because
Why'd
it
you
was-
do that, Tim?
Yeah, but that was pretty good.
Why did I do that?
30-something years ago, why did you stand outside with a sound meter? I'm
Well,
just
I
curious.
went back to my car, took the sound meter inside, and approached the guy controlling the soundboard and said, "It's already at spiking at 105 decibels. Why?" And he used an
couldn't hear you?
He used an expletive deleted to make me go away. So,
But why were you interested?
and then I went out because it was so loud. Then I went outside and measured it outside. It was like 78 outside on the street where they cut hair across the street. I'm like, this is incredible. But that was a long time ago. Never mind. But
He was
I'm sure
kind of
it might be
geeky
anything like
then,
Well,
too.
I guess.
So are
Stevie
you
Ray
all
or
trying to
Tim?
determine what kind of status the city of South Burlington can take in the process of the zoning process? Is there?
Zoning or DRB?
Well,
Well, not the zoning, but the
The
permitting
DRB?
process, the DRB.
do we know whether they have a set of uses that the zoning law that they just changed makes it an administrative permit and not a DRB permit process?
I have a belief from what, it's a
will be?
conditional, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Because it affects the entire south end. It includes all the businesses on Pine Street. All of the beer places want to have musical events, indoors and outdoors. And so it's all conditional use in terms of size and noise and indoor. So, yeah.
So there's a process.
So,
And I think this is letting them know we're interested in being part of that process.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not jumping up and down about the exact wording necessarily.
What's that?
I'm not excited about necessarily how all this is worded, as Tim just said, but it lets them know we want to be engaged, and that's all right.
I mean,
Good starting point.
Quote unquote, the proposed Champlain Parkway will also present a major obstacle for first responders getting to this remote sleepy corner of your city. I mean, if the parkway is built, whoever is responding, if they're responding from 570, what is this, or were they 575 as well? They're gonna get on the interstate and go straight down underneath Route 7 and be right there when they take a left on a Home Ave or to go, or back on, was it Industrial Ave? I mean, they will get there quicker than they could today. So, because they won't have to go over the little bridge, so I mean, there are just some things that we can't prove that are in here. But I enjoy the spirit of it, and I support it because it establishes all the things that are potential risks to the quality of life for people in Quin City Park.
That's worded well. You support the spirit of it, but we've got some, exactly.
Well, yes.
Can I just introduce, these are friends from Red Rocks Condos in Burlington. So Almi and Stephanie.
Hello.
And they've been part of the Burlington side of the neighbors on the Burlington side in terms of their participation in the process. And we've been working together on a couple of things.
Will Red Rocks, will that condo association have an interested party status in this permit process, do you think?
I don't know, that's an interesting question, am I allowed to speak? Sorry.
Yeah, just
I don't know.
introduce yourself to the camera.
Sure, I'm Almi Landauer and I live in Red Rocks Condos, which is in Burlington. So, I don't know the answer to that, but I supposedly adjoining properties have automatic status, but we do have Edland and Rhino Foods in between, not Rhino Foods so much, but Edland in between our condos and them, so I'm not sure how strict that is.
My name's Stephanie Herrick, and I'm on the board of the Red Rocks 3B, which is the condo association that is about 50 condo units. And as a board, we did vote to oppose this. And so we have funded we only put out a flyer, and we have paid the expense of that, and we will pay future expenses to a certain limit to oppose this. And while I'm speaking, I just want to say I liked what the letter had to say, your letter. I thought it was well-written and comprehensive, would answer my questions.
Are there other comments people would like to make?
We apparently arrived late. We thought that the agenda for Red Rocks, or for Higher Ground, was at 8:30.
I know, and it's very, very unusual, but we're ahead of schedule.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great thing.
So did
Usually somebody's sitting here for 45 minutes waiting to get to
Yeah.
an 8:30 or 8:45.
Did the
so.
conversation just begin? And
Yes, pretty much.
Is there anything that was read prior to this?
Well, we didn't read the letter out loud,
Okay.
but,
So could you tell me who you are?
would you like to make a comment, or are you just really here to listen? It's fine, you don't have to make a comment.
My name is Wendy Bratt, and I live at Queen City Park, South Burlington.
And I'm Lori Hayes. I'm at Queen City as well.
Okay.
Well, I'll speak off the cuff. I didn't know there was opportunity to speak, but I did speak at the Burlington City Council, as did Laura here. And we are opposed to Higher Ground going in to the Burton location, primarily due to our very quiet neighborhood potentially becoming much less quiet and much less safe. And also Red Rocks is a huge concern for us because of the opportunity it affords for people after a concert to go in, and we all know that cliff jumping is an issue. So we're strongly opposed, and that's all I'll say, but I think Lori and Laura might have some things to add.
I think the biggest issue for me is that we just don't know what's going to happen, and there hasn't been enough discussion about what exactly is going to happen. And if you don't, our neighborhood's kind of quirky, you know, it's got roads that are narrow and then people drive too fast on it. As neighbors, we know that, and we accommodate each other. But, you know, I've seen after events the kind of traffic patterns that come down to the beach when the Red Rocks is closed. And, you know, the police are called often. It's, so already there's some issues, you know, and we face those issues all the time. And often we don't have anything to do with them. They just kind of go, and police take care of them or don't. But this is a whole new world, you know, and I was thinking about that the other day, like, you know, that one-lane bridge is our only, well, those are two ways out, but that is the only way out for us. So if, you know, fire truck or an ambulance need to come in and there was a lot of traffic, I don't know how they do that. They could probably maneuver, but I'm not sure how that would happen. And for us, it's about, you know, we have great quality of life. We all kind of take care of each other and take care of our neighborhood. And the big fear for me is once that's gone, it's gone. And so because we just don't know how big this growth is going to be, or how many people are going to be at these venues, or, you know, I'm not opposed to the concept. I think there's some great ideas about vitality, but nobody's asked us who live there and who understand what it's like to live there, what the impact will be. So that's my concern. And, you know, it kind of went ahead, and possibly that was our issue, that we didn't jump on it quicker. But, so that's my big concern, is that things have moved forward without really understanding how it's going to impact people who live there.
There are 80 homes at Queen City Park. 80.
80.
Has Burton offered to meet with the neighbors yet?
Did once, right? Yes, they did in terms of the beginning and kind of outlining the plan, but not in terms of kind of discussing what is going to happen with our road, what's going to happen with the one-lane bridge, how are they going to deal with noise, light pollution, whatever. I've talked to them, but they seem to be very clear that they're moving forward. So
my concern is with traffic studies. I would hope that DRB invoke technical review and enforce a traffic study that they force the developer to pay for on their own, that they choose to, you know what I mean?
We used to do that often on DRB, and so we get a third party to do the traffic study that you know there's no bias, you know, one way or the other. There shouldn't be anyway, but you know, but that'll be an interesting process to see what happens there.
So if you would add technical review on noise, that would be good too, because I think it's real. The issue of noise is going to be, if not from traffic, then from the doors opening. When Lowe's went in, our neighborhood actually had status in the Act 250 hearing, and noise was a big concern, and that there was technical review, and there was a noise, we did a number of things, and this, the reason the Potash Brook actually is a channel for noise. And so,
Just
you
like
know,
the lake.
barriers, and so basically Lowe's ended up with a big barrier, a noise barrier, and, you know, that's certainly something that
Well, there you go.
a sound wall might be in
Right,
place.
right, that's one of the
Yeah,
suggestions.
a study, a technical study might
Yeah,
bear
so I
that
mean,
out.
if you were to indicate those technical, and Tim, you have the background in the DRB, those technical aspects in the letter to suggest that that's what we would look for. Or, you know, our prudential committee could probably echo that in a sort of a municipal to municipal kind of way.
So
Well, I
what,
guess-
in terms of the timing of this letter and their whole process, you don't have a time frame when this is coming before their DRB.
No.
So if we wanted to make this letter include those technical studies, which I think makes sense, if it's coming from the city council, it probably ought to be more than some of the, emotional,
Sure. Yeah.
perhaps unsubstantiated assumptions, but really make it a much more logical letter to say, these are the issues that are important to the South Burlington City and the council and this neighborhood, and here are some, we want to be part of that conditional use discussion, and potentially would really request that several studies be done that really, I certainly it would help the neighborhoods in Burlington as well. That could either appease some of your concerns or make them even greater, I don't know. It depends what comes out of it and what they propose to do. But that seems to me the best way to approach this, not. Stephanie?
Helen, one of the, being a conditional permit, I'd like to see a condition put on there. Right now, Higher Ground has 8 to 10 concerts a week. And they usually get out at 11 o'clock at night. Some of them, obviously, others are held during the day. But something about, times and numbers of concert. Those could be conditions that you could request.
Right, but I think that would have to come out of some technical information and not just this council saying, we think a good noise time is, 10:30. Based on, well, that's what we have here, so I.
When I go to bed.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
is the next step in the process the DRB?
I think so.
No, really, the next step in the process is really discussion presumably between Higher Ground and Burton about the use, coming to terms on the rent, coming to terms with fit up, who's covering those costs, anything they would have to do for the landlord in the parking lot, those sorts of things, and then they would file a application with the Development Review Board at some point, once those things are worked out.
And we don't have any involvement in that discussion, right?
I don't think the city would or the neighbors would. It's a
Right.
business discussion
Okay,
between
got
the tenant and the landlord.
Yeah.
But once it becomes public in the permitting process. I think that's where you're gonna have maximum impact, because the conditional use means that it's not an allowed use, it's a conditional use. And they have to meet certain obligations to the city of Burlington and to the abutters who get party status, I guess, in the. So that's when you can actually have impact on these questions.
That is very well explained, as usual.
Thank you.
So I think, if I just, for a second, I'm not saying, is it a good idea, bad idea? I think, Burton and their market is somewhat matched to what Higher Ground wants to attract. And so probably, if it can be made to work amenably, then it's probably a decent idea economically. Having said that, when we talk about noise abatement and traffic studies and all that, I guess, beyond that, I think somehow, and I may have expressed this to somebody before, concern that, okay, concert lets out 11 o'clock at night. It was a loud concert. People were a lot of fun. I presume they serve beer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, and so everybody get, once it's a summer night or something like that, get out in the parking lot, and gee, let's not stay here. There's this Red Rocks Park. Let's go park there. And then, gee, it's a hot summer night. Why don't we go swimming? We know there's a beach down there. And so those are some of the concerns that I'm not sure how they get addressed. Quite honestly, those are my greatest concerns. I feel reasonably confident that with the Champlain Parkway coming to pass, and Tim brings up a very good point about emergency access, probably enhanced, not inhibited, and noise mitigation through construction. I feel reasonably confident a lot of those things can be addressed. It's this other stuff that really, I was a kid once and did things like this, and
I think we all did.
Yeah, exactly. And so those are and how that gets addressed, I don't know, but I think that's something you need to look for when it gets to that point, that those points have to be discussed. I think those would be the greatest concerns.
Well, I think that one of the biggest things that we need to look at in reflecting on what you said is enforcement, law enforcement.
That's all part of it, sure.
Yeah, but who's gonna respond?
Whose cost is that?
Whose cost is it? Is it South Burlington? Because once they get into Red Rocks Park and once they're down in our neighborhood raising, all sorts of cane, then it becomes South Burlington's responsibility.
Well, part of the conditional use could be, that I think they use Green Mountain Security or something like that. A security guard that they pay for has to be posted at the entrance to Red Rocks at the end of the concert for an hour and a half or whatever. I mean, that could be part of the condition. During the warm months.
So is it all open in terms of the conditions? So like we could say, we would like to have that street somehow unavailable to folks coming.
Talking about Central?
Yes, into Red Rocks
For
Park.
Red Rocks.
Is that a possibility that we could do something like that?
I think you can ask for anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
In
you're
a
right.
proceeding like that, you can probably ask for anything.
But it seems to me that the city has the obligation to really press for that, because it's gonna be on South Burlington's police to be showing up. Burlington and Higher Grounds bouncers are not gonna be over there grabbing kids out of Red Rocks Park as they're heading down toward the
But
beach.
Burlington will be there watching the parking lot closely.
Burlington Police Department, you
Yeah.
mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, the South Burlington Police watches that parking lot very closely and have made several contacts with people coming out, right?
Yeah.
So.
There were 119 police incidents last year at Higher Ground.
Yeah, some of those though are directed patrols. They're
Okay.
not what you would think that they were, which were
So
the
that's
police
not
get
as big
called.
as it sounds.
A directed patrol is when the sergeant on duty to say the concert at Higher Ground, swing by a couple times tonight. And so each one of those swing bys counts as a directed patrol.
So we don't
Doesn't
know
mean there's
how many-
anything going on there that's of a concern. It's just a directed patrol.
So a big concern for us is that there's a lot of activity that happens in Queen City Park and the beach and in the park itself that no one ever reports. Because it's a drag to call the police on your neighbors it's just a drag anyway. You don't want to call the police. So that happens all the time. And when you do call the police, they respond. But so this already happens a lot. And so my concern is that it happens more. The police are going to get really burned out being called for nuisance stuff. That's a real issue. So I like your idea.
It's quality of life, for them it's nuisance. I think it's.
Totally, right.
Yeah.
So, the idea of having somebody who is, kind of blocking that or something. But that's the stuff that I don't think many people understand because you don't live there,
Right.
How
Well,
many
and
people?
that's, I think our point is that has to be conveyed in the process and the venue to convey those very real issues and asking for a solution or offering perhaps what you think would be a reasonable solution is very important.
How do we
to
do
have
that?
happen.
Are you talking about that being through a letter that South Burlington City Council writes, including this third party?
No, I think for maximum effectiveness, we would have a letter that would lay out all of the concerns for the city.
Okay.
And we would be there, our attorneys would be there to deliver that during the DRB proceedings.
Okay.
But
So
you
is the
folks
city-
should be, you folks should express your opinions as well. And the only way I said, I said a few minutes ago, I don't know if this can work or not,
Yeah.
but the only way it's gonna work is if all these concerns are answered and answered responsibly, and, and see what happens. What's the nearest Burlington beach to Burton? That's not far either, is it?
Hi, did you?
So I
Harder
would
to get to,
expect
though.
there's the same concern in Burlington. What's gonna keep kids going to South Burlington versus Burlington? So I think you're gonna see, you've got similar concerns.
let me,
So
Can you just
I think you all have a very significant role to play
Yeah.
in
So I
assuring
have
that
my
if something
cell
goes
phone
forward,
on.
it goes forward with all the Ts
You hear
crossed, the Is dotted, so it doesn't get screwed up.
So we weren't here when you read a letter or whatever the letter was?
It's online.
Oh, it's online, okay. So is the city council opposed to this, or is there a position? I know, Mr. Dorn, I don't think you were opposed to it.
No, I
Pardon me? This isn't working, is
I think
it?
the point was,
Okay.
we are aware that Higher Ground has been talking to Burton.
Yep.
It's been going on, I mean, they've had
Yeah.
the discussions for a while. Whether or not they'll reach an agreement on lease of the venue, we don't know. You might recall, a year and a half ago, they were in the same discussions with the city of Winooski.
Yes.
They were gonna go in on
Go
the
there.
corner there.
Right.
And that broke apart, that broke down, and they abandoned that at someplace pretty far into the process of the negotiations and the business deal. We don't know yet whether Higher Ground or some other promoter will reach an agreement with Burton. From what the newspapers say, they're having those conversations. But I think once they are at a comfort level in their business agreement, they will file, before signing any lease, they'll file for the permits. And it's at that point that the city, if the city council chooses to engage in that as an abutter, can appear, and others who can get that status can appear as well.
But as a city council, do you have a direction? I mean, we're kind of lost because we're kind of, South Burlington folks who nobody's gonna hear, Burlington folks are not gonna listen to us, justifiably so. So it's, I just wonder what are you gonna do? Like, is there an effort to confront it, or is it, let's watch and see, which I understand could be a reasonable, because we just kind of don't know what our options are in terms of.
Well, I think, I can only speak for myself, but I think there's pretty broad consensus on the council that there are some issues involved with this that we need to communicate to Burlington in this process. So I personally think that if we work on a letter that's a little more
What you said before.
yeah, a little more focused and not emotional
More factual.
or assuming things that we don't, but really factual. And there's, 5 or 6 issues and we state them, and these are concerns that we would anticipate or wish to be responded to in the conditional use permitting processes that you use with whatever the venues are. And I think we can ask, we want to be part of that conversation before the DRB to state our case. So I think there's consensus. I know Tom and Megan, who wrote this, are concerned. I certainly am. I think Tim has expressed some concerns, as David. So I think that's the process. I'm not sure this letter is the right vehicle to convey that. So we will work on it. I think we have a little bit of time, but I think that is of importance.
How will we know when the DRB meeting is?
It's a public meeting of that body, and so we will receive notice as an abutter. Other abutters will receive notice as well. It will also be, it has to be warned by the city of Burlington in a normal way that they warn their meetings. And so you're gonna be able to follow the DRB agendas as they come.
Okay.
I imagine something that has gotten this much attention would also probably be updated in the newspaper.
Yeah.
I think Front Porch
Possibly.
Forum, people who are following
probably
along
true.
will
Yeah,
let their
that's
neighbors
better,
know that the meeting is, Tuesday night at 7, and
Right. You're all on Front Porch Forum, Queen City Park, I suppose, right? Or
Yes.
you have your
And
own for?
we are the same.
You're the same one?
Share
Okay.
it with
Oh,
them.
cool, okay, good. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name?
Almy.
Almy.
Yes, I've been saving up things to say. I wanted to let you guys know that we have a list from the Burlington, South Burlington Police of what the calls were. And yes, a lot of them were those, but to me that indicates that they know that there are concerns there. There's also many of them that are actual incidents
That's
of
what I thought,
violence and
yeah.
crimes and hit and run, leaving the scene of an accident, sexual things. So it's not, we can't just sweep that under the rug. The other thing is that so the Red Rocks, we're in a group of about 10 people who've been meeting and have been trying to work on this issue, and we share all the same concerns about safety and noise and late night alcohol-fueled activity. And we also know that the Burlington police are very occupied with our downtown after 9 p.m. at night, and that concerns us because that's where, when you read in the paper something happened, some violent crime happened in Burlington, 9 times out of 10, it's downtown after the bars close. And so that's where the police are. So we're concerned, are they really gonna have enough coverage to be adequate at a new location like this? The traffic issue, some of the concerts start as early as 6 o'clock, so it's going to, conjoin with rush hour traffic in that little neighborhood. So that was another point. And then as far as, Helen, what you were saying about, addressing the technical concerns and sort of the more, legalistic things, Joan Shannon, who is one of the South representatives, and I have been in quite frequent communication about this, and she was the only city council member who was really willing to speak up about these concerns at their meetings. Our other South End representative, Chip Mason, is recused because he has close ties with both Burton and Higher Ground. He's an attorney. So we are lacking some representation on the city council because of that. So anyway, so Joan has let me know that when you do work on speaking in front of a development review board, that it's really important to address the specific things that a DRB can address. And one of those big things is that in Burlington we have a fully vetted and accepted and voted on by the city planning tool called Plan BTV, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with. And there's a section of that called Plan BTV South End, and it specifically disallows performing arts centers. And that was the zoning that they changed through this process so far. But they did that without any public meetings other than their council meetings. They didn't go through a public vetting process saying, hey, we want to change our plan that we have. And so, from our perspective, they're doing something that's really not a transparent and correct process as far as the planning process for the city. And I think that's a really important thing to bring up with the development review board as well. So.
Okay, well, thank you. Other comments? So we'll work on redrafting something that is I think actually would be more helpful, because once you identify these are the issues and this is what we think might be solutions or request certain actions, I think then a body can respond to that versus, you know, it's a beautiful, quiet neighborhood and don't want it to change. And I appreciate that sentiment and support that. But that's very hard for DRB to respond to. There isn't a land use regulation that says, oh yeah, okay, this is what we can do,
Well,
it's a quiet neighborhood.
Our Plan BTV South End does talk about preserving the quality of community. I don't remember the exact words, but that sentiment is in our plan.
Well, and that's very important for
Right.
Burlington
Burlington.
residents to
Right.
bring up. I think it would be weird, frankly, for the South Burlington lawyer to get in the middle of, well, this is what your plan says, and you're not adhering to your own principles. I just don't think we can do that. That's really overstepping our.
But you can't. But all of us can look at in the conditional uses that are that are allowed in the enterprise light manufacturing zone, and try to speak directly to those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you
Good
coming.
conversation, great input.
I hope we've satisfied you somewhat in terms of, you know, understanding that we plan to be more specific and pointed in both the letter and our engagement when the time is right on this issue.
And we also very much share your concerns.
And if you want more detail in terms of making your letter more alive, I think we can help you with that.
Okay. Will we have access to that letter?
When
At
we
least for those
write it,
listening.
we can share it.
When the council sees it, it'll become a public document.
Yeah.
So it's available.
When the Burlington City Council receives it?
No, when we will
When you write it, it'll
rewrite
be
this, then
on
this
your website.
council in an open meeting will review it and talk with our council and our administrators about how this might work out. And so the public would be welcome to both listen and comment and maybe even add things.
Do you have a sense that this is like a month off or a couple weeks off? I mean, are we just gonna have to keep watching the agenda to see
Right.
when this comes up, the letter?
Well, I think the council needs to decide if, and perhaps you should have that discussion. It sounds like you kind of want to have kind of a upfront declaration of concern that goes to perhaps the city council of Burlington, perhaps also to the DRB.
Yeah, and the mayor. Yeah.
And then something more specific, if and when this ever happens, that you then have a more technical document written by lawyers that lays out the concerns based upon what we're hearing on noise, traffic, other things that would be in lawyer-ese.
I think what they're asking though is how soon are we gonna redraft the letter? We haven't decided even who's redrafting the letter yet. So I think, isn't that what you're, and when
Yes,
that's gonna be available?
they wanted sort of a deadline, so. I mean, I think, can the three of us agree that that would be a good process?
Yes,
I don't know if
I think that's a good process.
I don't know if I can put a timeline on it.
Well,
It's okay, and we're
Wrote
missing two
that,
people,
so-
but
We'll watch.
we will not make it a secret. Okay, and you've been in communication with all of us, so we can respond. with-
You can certainly email in a couple of weeks and say, what's up with the letter? There's no reason why
Yeah,
not.
that's a great idea, that keeps,
Absolutely.
keeps us on our toes. Yes.
One more comment, just mostly to the folks in the audience, but Chip Mason also informed me, he's one of the Burlington counselors, that we can write to the Development Review Board even before they meet, and it becomes part of the public record of this issue. So feel free to write directly to them as well, because the city council at this point is sort of out of it.
You all should talk.
Yeah, we have been, yeah.
You don't have to do it,
First time we
you
met.
can do it.
Thank you.
Thanks very
Okay.
much.
Thank you very much.
That was very helpful too.
It is. So, Do we have
Burlington DRB.
any other business?
I think not.
Oh, yes, one,
Oh, I have one statement, go ahead.
First Street, Kennedy and Trader Joe's still has a few potholes. I mean, some were repaired, but there are still some, and they're aggravating. Everywhere else is pretty good, I think. What, do we know when paving's gonna start?
Supposed to start on the 8th.
Of July, okay. Carroll came out beautiful, right?
It did.
Looks great.
And that section of Swift.
And the whole, the Eastwoods neighborhood, right? You know, like Proctor is nice, and and they've already turned the pump. We didn't have a ribbon cutting for.
Well, I think we'll still do a ribbon.
We should do a ribbon
Right.
cutting.
Or a pump turning.
This is on which one?
I want to be there for that.
Or the valve turning.
Yeah, the valve turn.
Because you know what's flowing through.
Well, you don't want to turn it the wrong way, because we'll get charged for that, right? So.
We will have something announced within the next week or so when we'll do that.
Yeah.
We want to get it.
That would be fun.
What are you talking about?
The whole.
The whole sewer, we're taking
I
care
was
of
on
our
roads.
own sewage, and we're not getting
Yes.
charged an arm and a leg by Burlington.
Sorry, I
to
was
do
still
it
on
for
pavement
us.
and potholes.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just want to do another shout out to Leo Nadu, who is Tom's uncle, but my neighbor. And he's a wonderful guy, and the corner of Van Sicklen and Heinsberg Road, the grass is really high. So it's very hard to make a left or a right turn. And since that's Route 116, I usually call, and Justin, and he calls, the state, and when they see fit, they come by and mow it. But my husband was all set to take our mower down. Well, because he comes up it every, and he's a biker, and you can't see. But Leo has a very large mower, and he did it. And so he often does things like that, and it's really, he was a former police chief in Essex, so.
And a great police chief.
So safety has been part of his life for a long time, but it's always nice to have someone in the public who takes that initiative rather than just moan and groan about the state or the city not doing X, Y, and Z.
I think that should show up in the minutes, that statement.
There. Okay.
What about the, I noticed on Farrell today, that bright Irish green paint, the Kelly green, have you? And that's to designate what?
Bike lane.
Yeah. But what happens, I mean, there's white, and there's bike lanes, and there's bikes, and there's dots, and there's
Williston
green.
Road had that when they redid it 2 years ago. It's the same.
How long is the damn stuff go? Are we gonna have to do that every single spring?
probably
The
every
winter
couple years.
wear is so bad on all of this stuff.
Yeah, you can already see it.
I know, what's the alternative?
I don't know, I'm just asking. I mean, there are, I turned right off of Williston Road onto Dorset Street the other day. I noticed in one section, there's no lines at all anymore. I mean,
They're getting to it.
That's also going to start on the 8th.
it's tough, I know.
It is tough.
I was just asking, I'm hoping maybe the quality of the paint's improved. They now make, for example, a paint that you can now use over pressure-treated lumber that has longevity versus what they're used to. Every year, there's something better and better and better. Hopefully that's happening. I'm not complaining, I'm just saying, crap. We put all this beautiful paint down, and then in winter mucks it all up again.
I know. Well, winter's
Oh, well.
changing though, maybe it'll never snow again.
Dye in the pavement.
Well, I mean, that's,
Yeah, make
the
it
thought has
so
crossed my
permanent
mind.
that you have to redo the road.
Well, you say put dye in the pavement. Concrete, they indeed do put the dye in. And so you get the colored concrete that stays. I don't think they figured out that for blacktop yet,
macadam, yeah.
unfortunately.
My concern is that there's now so much stuff on the roads that it's become a distraction to drivers. You spend more time trying to figure out what this is, what that is, and you're not watching traffic or pedestrians.
Well, that's a valid point.
A couple of the policemen I've talked to absolutely agree with me.
Valid point.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved. Jeez,
All in
this
favor?
is the earliest in months.
22 minutes before 9.
Is it a record?
Oh, no.
Damn near.
Nowhere close.
For this current,
Current year, definitely this is a record.
My computer,
Maybe the
my
last 4
laptop,
years.
iPad is not accessing the internet in here. I'm okay outside, I get in here and put my password in and I guess I get a hold of Al again. I thought it was okay, but it's not. Anyway, anything else?
well, the tiling is starting.
Oh, that's
The
fine.
electrician's gonna come Wednesday and actually put power back in our bedroom.